Justice for Jimmy Atchison.
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 Say his name.
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 Jimmy Atchison.
No justice.
No peace.
I said 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 no justice.
No peace.
When our laws are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up and fight back.
When our laws are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up and fight back.
When our laws are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up and fight back.
Stand up, 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 fight back.
No justice.
No peace.
Justice for Jimmy
Justice for
Atchison.
Jimmy.
Justice for Jimmy Atchison.
Guys, get in there right quick.
We're going to start with Gerald Griggs from the NAACP. We'll have some opening statements. Mr. Griggs.
Thank you. First and foremost, I just want to thank this family. I want to thank all the activists and all the supporters that have been here from day one. And this is the next step in justice for Jimmy Atchison. We received word on Friday that an indictment has come down in the case of a State of Georgia versus Sung Kim. Sung Kim is the former Atlanta police officer who has now been charged in the shooting death of Jimmy Atchison. And since January the 22nd of 2019, we have been standing with this family as the Georgia NAACP, as the Atlanta NAACP, with all of our activist partners who are here, some that are here, some that are not here. But let's be clear, this shooting should never have happened. And it should not have taken 3.5 years to get to this point. But because of the perseverance of Jimmy's family, particularly his aunt and his father and his late mother and all of his siblings and his brother, we are here. But Atlanta, we have a police brutality problem.
Yes.
Georgia, of course, has a police brutality problem. And this case is a seminal case of how we respond. Because of the work of the family, because of the work of the activists, because of the work of Georgians, we have gotten to this moment. But let's be clear, this is not the end. We want full justice and accountability for the untimely murder of Jimmy Atchison. Because Jimmy is a son of Southwest Atlanta. Jimmy is the symbol upon which many people were marching and protesting from 2019 to today. Atlanta has a police brutality problem. And Jimmy's name underscores that. So the reason why we're standing out here on the Fulton County Courthouse steps is because this is the only place that you get true justice and accountability. We know true justice in this case would be Jimmy Atchison standing with us. But it's time for accountability. And so we are calling on the Fulton County District Attorney to put all of the power of her office in securing a conviction in this case. We are thankful that she finally put it in front of a grand jury, but we want more than just indictments. We want convictions. And so on behalf of the Georgia State Conference of the NAACP, we stand with this family. On behalf of the Atlanta NAACP, we stand with this family. On behalf of all of my activist brothers and sisters who like to get in a little good and necessary trouble, we stand with this family. And I'm just appreciative. I see Jimmy's attorney, Tanya Miller, coming. We are proud to be joined by the Cochran firm as well. And so we're going to wait for a moment for Tanya to come. Okay. Well, I would turn it over to one of Jimmy's attorneys, and they will outline what's next in the legal case.
Good morning. I'm Sam Starks, an attorney with the Cochran firm here in Atlanta, here with Sean Williams, also from the Cochran firm. And we are with Tanya Miller, counsel for the Atchison family. We have a lawsuit that is pending in federal court against former Officer Kim, as well as other officers that were involved in this incident. I want to echo some of what Gerald Griggs said a moment ago. Obviously, we support this indictment. We support the charges that have been brought against this officer. But this is not an isolated incident. And so I want to speak to APD, because I think APD should be held accountable. I think APD, although they are not on the indictment, APD is an accessory to this crime.
That's right.
And it was a crime. And APD, through its lack of training, lack of supervision, lack of disciplining officers, they are an accessory before the fact. Because as Gerald said, there is a police brutality problem in Atlanta. And APD is part of that problem, a big part of that problem. And so we have records already which show that APD's investigation into this incident, it was a sham.
That's right.
They essentially allowed this officer to resign without ever taking any action to determine whether he was at fault or to discipline him. That is not in the best interest of the public. And so what I would say to you, based on what we know from the Cochran firm and our litigation against the City of Atlanta Police Department, they routinely and systematically turn a blind eye to excessive force.
Okay.
They don't adequately train their officers on use of deadly force. So go to the mayor and go to APD and ask, what's your position on this indictment?
Amen.
What's your position on the shooting? Thank you.
Thank you. Amen.
Thank you.
Now, this is Tanya Miller, the chief attorney on this case, has been with the family from the get-go. Ms. Miller?
Thank you. Good morning. It's so good to see all of your faces here today. Many of you have been covering this story since the day it happened, back in January of 2019. We would not be here, let me start by saying, we would not be here without the Atlanta media's intentional coverage of what happened to Jimmy Atchison.
Yes.
And I am 100% confident of that. So in addition to all of the people the family would like to thank, we want to start by thanking the Atlanta media. Things die in the dark, like justice and truth. And having a press like the press here in Atlanta that covered this story without a video, that listened to this family, that asked the questions of the officials in charge, all of those things in addition to the efforts of the Atchison family and Jimmy Hill, brought us to this point of justice, put this case in front of a Fulton County grand jury, which is all we ever asked for from the beginning. So I want to thank this family for just, when I tell you, if you ever needed an army of people behind you to champion your cause, the family of Jimmy Atchison is the army for you.
Yes.
I also want to thank the Georgia NAACP, who came with us on January 20th. January 23rd, the day after Jimmy was killed, and went to this scene and has pursued this case and stood by this family with so much faith and loyalty. I want to thank them for that. I want to thank the Fulton County District Attorney, Madam Fonnie Willis. The frustrations that this family has felt, the community have felt as a result of the delays in bringing this case before a grand jury were very real, and we were very honest about that. And I want to thank her for doing the work. I want to thank her for giving this case to a grand jury, and I want to thank her for the opportunity for the truth about what happened to Jimmy Atchison to be part of the public discourse. We will respect this officer's right to due process. He will have his day in court. It is a right that he denied Jimmy Atchison when he took his life on January 22nd, 2019. I am happy to partner with the Cochran firm, one of the foremost civil rights firms in Atlanta, to also pursue civil justice for Jimmy's 2 small children who are left behind to matriculate through life without a father. Again, this was a group effort. To all the protesters who protested, who marched, who said his name, thank you. We look forward to this case being tried in a jury and justice being done. Thank you.
Can we hear from Jimmy's father?
Yes, we can.
Jimmy?
How everybody doing? Thank you for being here. God is good, and He continues to be good. Just thanks to so many people. Thanks to all our supporters. Thanks to everyone for your prayers. Thanks for those who worked in the dark that we don't know about. Thanks to the news for covering this story. We've been through so much. January 22nd, 2019 was one of the darker days of our lives. Of our lives. It probably was the darkest day. My son, who was unarmed and surrendered. I know he was scared. Every day I asked myself, what was his last words? What your last words was, LJ? And it's been a struggle, suffering and pain, and people just don't understand what police brutality does to the family, emotionally, and mentally, and physically, the wear and tear it places on us. It's just time for a change. It's time for a change as of today. Police brutality is a detriment to society, and the shooters need to be punished. Son Kim need to be punished. That's right. For the unjustly murder of my son, Jimmy Atchison. Son Kim should not have been allowed. January 22nd will be 4 years. 4 years in which the pain and suffering from his grandmama Elizabeth Atchison, his uncle Tim Atchison, and his mother Cynthia Atchison, who we laid to rest on May 19th of this year. And depression plays a part in all of it. So 4 years that he's been walking around when he should have been fired instead of being allowed to resign. And now after violating my son's human and civil rights, and then being allowed to do surveillance work for the government. It's about policy change. And we all need to come to the table or reckoning for policy change. It's time for a change. I just want to just thank everybody and for your support. Thank everybody for continuing to support us, the activists, NAACP. Everybody, thank my little attorney. We butt heads sometimes, but I still love her. Thank my attorney, Tanya Miller. There's so much. So I just thank us as a family for continue in this fight. We didn't give up. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tammy Featherstone. I'm the aunt of Jimmy Atchison. I first want to thank District Attorney Fonnie Willis for doing the right thing. Our first meeting with her was not good for me, but she did tell me to give her time. She was going to investigate this, the murder of my nephew, and she was going to make the decision off of what she investigated. And to know that her investigation about that indictment for Son Kim is very, very assuring that she's doing the right thing. She's moving in the right way. So the justice for Jimmy is the justice for a lot of Jimmys to come. I want to thank everybody here for your support, for standing with us. I want to thank everybody on Facebook, Instagram for saying Jimmy's name, reposting Jimmy's picture. If my sister was here today, she would really, really be so grateful to everybody. Unfortunately, like Jimmy said, depression is real. She suffered 4 years from the death of her son, and she never recovered. My nieces, my nephews, we all thank you. It's been a long, hard road, and we couldn't have did it without your help. So the family just want to say thank you. We appreciate you, and now it's time for us to stand together and make sure that he's held accountable, not just indicted, but serve time for the murder of Jimmy Atchison.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody else? Come on.
Hey, my name is Jimmy Atchison. I'm Jimmy's sister, and on behalf of my siblings we are grateful that the fight for justice for our brother is still alive. We would also like to thank Fannie Willis and her team, Miss Tanya Miller and Mr. Gerald Griggs, for standing in this fight with us, along with everyone else that has supported the Justice for Jimmy movement, whether it was a simple repost or just a shout out. I know our mom and grandmother is in heaven looking down with the biggest smile on their faces. I know we have a long way to go, but we're confident that justice will be served. Once again, thank you.
Good job. Is that everybody? Gerald?
Questions?
Before we take any questions, I just want to really underscore the fight that this family had to put up. You know, from the day it happened to right now, because of the resolve of this family, we are standing here. And so, as you heard from the family, as you heard from the attorneys, as you hear from the activists, this is the beginning of this fight, and they want full accountability. So, you know, I can remember going through that crime scene. No one should have to go through the fight that they've had to go through. So we just have to ask everyone that continues in this fight to say his name, to repost, to share, to remember the resolve we had in Freedom Summer 2020 when we were fighting for George and fighting for Breonna and fighting for Rayshard. We were also fighting for Jimmy. And so we need to finish this race. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask either Tammy or Jimmy's sister what this moment would have meant for Miss Cynthia.
It would have meant everything to her. From the day that he was murdered, her focus was justice. She wanted to see son Kim in jail for the murder of her son. From the encounter she had with him until the day he killed her son, she wanted him in jail. That's her main focus, was to have son Kim put in jail for the murder of her son.
Do you think that Jimmy's death hastened hers?
Yes, very much. That was her only son. That was her only son. That was her baby. It did. She never recovered. My sister was afraid of the police. She see a police, we riding in the car, she would have a panic attack. Yes, it changed her life dramatically.
I'm curious if you guys could talk more about this fight and, you know, this army of people that you guys have had behind you. Is that the message that it sends to families who are going to suffer this tragedy in the future? That's what it's going to take, is an army of people and never giving up?
I'm glad you asked that question, because it is. It is. And I want to say to these families, the ones that's still fighting and the ones to come, never give up. Don't take no for an answer. One person no could be another person's yes. So never give up. Jimmy Atchison, this officer being indicted, it shows that it can happen for you. So when one district attorney tells you no, you keep going. You go over that district attorney. You keep fighting for your child. You never give up. You say your child's name every day. That's why social media is so important. You fight through social media. You fight on the streets. You fight. You give it all. You cannot give up. That's what they want you to do. Stop saying your child's name and your child will be lost. It'll just be another death in the state of Georgia, city of Atlanta. You cannot give up. I tell the mothers that I'm associated with it every day. Post your son. Post something about your child. Let somebody know you're getting a new person every day, every post. Keep fighting.
I want to add to that. You know, when this fight first started out, it was about my son, Jimmy Atchison. But see, my son became all of our son. See, it was all, Jimmy Atchison became a name, a son to each one of us that was out here fighting. You know, it's so much turmoil that you go through. Here we are, the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King, creator of the civil rights movement, known as the Black Mecca. And I think there should be more a discussion with the mayor and city council and county commissioners. Black leadership and black pastors need to get out here with boots on the ground in this street, in this movement, and support these families. That's right. Godly counseling, it's time to bring back integrity, character, and godly principles back to the city of Atlanta. And it's just time, because the showing a lack of support that we had from black leadership, from black pastors, from black entertainers who continue to remain silent and ignore after being intimidated by the presence and powers of white supremacists and others. And so it's time for a change. My son's life matters. And we had to get out here and fight. And I think it's so important to thank everybody that's been a part of this. Yes. His life matters. And we have to let everybody know the rest of these lives matter.
Let me say one thing to Nick's question too. First, I want to say to your question about Cynthia Atchison, one of the things that Cynthia said before she passed away was that God gave her Jimmy, who was her only son, and son Kim took him away. And to understand the toll that it took on her, her life was never the same after that. And we saw the life slowly sort of creep out of her as she waited for justice. Unfortunately, it came too late for her to see it. To Nick's point, one of the things I think you saw happen as a result of the actions of this family and all the community members, which I want to hear from Shar Bates in 1 second, is that the body camera policy in Atlanta changed. The body camera policy in Atlanta changed as a result of a lot of groundwork that was laid before Jimmy's death, but certainly when Jimmy was killed and there were so many questions about why and how he was killed, it forced Atlanta to change their body camera policy. So our hope is that if this happens to another family, that there will be body camera footage. That is important not only for the community, it is important for police officers. It is just a simple measure of transparency that fosters integrity in policing, and it's so important. And then lastly, I'm going to let Shar Bates speak, who was one of the community members who worked so hard to keep Jimmy's name alive in the community. Shar?
Like she said, my name is Shar Bates, and I'm a community activist and advocate. I'm sorry, I'm emotional because Jimmy Atchison is the first police brutality victim I ever knew personally. And he was a star. They took a star from us. When you hear his family talk about him, he was a light. And this was wrong. And I want to say thank you to all of the activists all across this country that reposted, that called, that shared every single time. And do not give up. Don't ever stop posting. Y'all, these families get tired sometimes and they feel like we don't support them anymore and they feel like they don't have help. I don't care if you already posted it. Post it again. Every time you post, at least one person is going to know about this story that did not know about it before. And it's small victories like this, the big victories like this that give other families hope. You know, the first, like Tanya said, the first big victory that we had was Atlanta police and the federal task force being required to wear body cams. If that didn't happen, we would not have footage of Rayshard Brooks' case. We would not have footage of the college kids. We would not have footage of these cases that will come, because they will come because the police are the biggest gang in America. So continue fighting, because these families need us. I know it gets weary. I know it's hard, because outside of 2020, sometimes it's only 20, 30 of us. It doesn't matter. Right. Even if people don't like it, even if they don't comment, they see us. We see you, and the families see you, and it helps them continue on with the fight. And thank you to BET Cop Watch America for featuring this story. Thank you to P. Frank Williams. Even though we were snatched off, the impact of that show, even allowing it to be aired, took us to another height. So keep going.
Any other questions?
Yes, please. Mr. Hill.
Yes.
So, I mean, you have an army behind you right now. But
yes.
I have seen you on more than one day standing across the street with one of the signs.
Come on.
Talk
about it. That's right. Talk about it, Jimmy.
And as often as not, you might have one person there seen you there alone. And what I want to ask you is how you staved off despair and exhaustion in those moments that led up to this.
Great question.
Jimmy, we called him LJ. That's what everybody knows. He just wanted my son. And my son Jimmy, he had so much talent that he didn't get a chance. He was robbed of his life. He didn't get a chance to share the talents and gifts that he had to bless society because of an unjustly murder. My son, he was a human being, a living, breathing human being created in the image of God.
Come on. Come on. Now that's
And my
true.
son deserved better. And I know it was about fighting for him. If a man won't stand for something, then he ain't fit to live.
Come on.
You understand what I'm saying? And I'm going to stand for mine. And I'm going to continue to stand for mine. And because of a lot of support, prayers, and a lot of times we pray. Yeah, prayer changes things, but faith without works is dead also. So we have to get out here and fight. So encouragement, want justice. Like I said, it started out about my son Jimmy, but it became much more. It became much more about everybody's sons because so many Jimmy's families have given up. So many Jimmy families haven't received justice. And this system is designed to not hear the cries of pain from the families. And it's just time for this. It's time for a change. And in order to be about change, in order to be a difference maker, it's about sacrifice. And that's what it's about. It was about sacrifice.
Talking about the system, you've seen how hard it is for a murder conviction to be returned against an officer. I'm curious with the indictments that were issued, felony murder, involuntary manslaughter, if you guys have a preference, what is pursued by the district attorney, given that police officers are often, unfortunately, given the benefit of the doubt?
I'll take that one. I think that what we are seeing now is a shift somewhat in the public's understanding of police excessive force. And so you are starting to see more convictions for officers who have engaged in excessive force in the public eye. It is not uncommon. I was a prosecutor for nearly a decade. It is not uncommon for prosecutors to charge the lead charge they believe they can prove and also charge in the alternative. There are lots of strategic decisions that go into that. Obviously, proving involuntary manslaughter will be easier to prove than felony murder. But let me be clear, the family's position is and will remain that felony murder is the appropriate charge in this case. We fully expect the district attorney's office to pursue it. We understand if they also pursue other charges that are lesser included of that as a strategic matter. But our position is that felony murder is the appropriate charge, and we agree with the grand jury.
Ms. Miller, you were once a chief DA, assistant DA in that same office. I know it's difficult for you to criticize that office because they've come through for you. But the fact is, they took 3.5 years. How much of that responsibility do you put on the APD for not being forward with the case with the DA's office?
Well, I think the delay in this case is attributable to multiple factors. I think part of it is, yes, it is the system's, the dragging sort of the feet that the system naturally has when it comes to law enforcement having to investigate their own. It's always been a challenge. It remains a challenge, which underscores the importance of body camera footage. The fact that there was no body camera footage we believed caused significant delays on the front end in investigating this case because there was the question of what happened, and Jimmy's not here to tell you what happened from his perspective.
And so all they have is the officer's word and the fellow officers? Is that an issue?
That can be an issue, and I think many prosecutors who prosecute public corruption cases and police brutality cases will tell you that some of their most challenging witnesses are other police officers. That is real. But it's not just APD, it's the FBI who needs to take their share of responsibility for the delay in this case. This case was born of a federal task force, and because of that, the FBI caused significant delays to occur in the investigation, both under the previous administration of Paul Howard and the current administration of District Attorney Fonnie Willis. There have been other cases like this where the feds have dragged their feet and obstructed investigations. In fact, they've been sued by the district attorney's office for failure to turn over documents in the Jamarian Robinson case, and the DAs won that lawsuit. So I think it's a nasty cocktail of a lot of factors, including COVID. The court house shutdown and the shutdown of grand jury proceedings also contributed to the delay.
Do you still seek a $20 million civil suit? Is that still going on?
Our civil suit is still pending on behalf of Jimmy's children. Yes.
Tanya or Sean, was the delay, the dragging of the feet in Jimmy's case, the same as the others? Was it the failure to produce witnesses and documents and whatever?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The delay, as we understand it, is that the federal government took over the investigation of this case in the beginning because Sung Kim was acting as a federal task force officer. When they took over the investigation, they, in essence, required the district attorney and APD to first stand down until they were finished. And then when they were done, they required the district attorney and APD to go through a process of requesting information from them. That process is called the 2E process, not to get too wonky, but it is a process by which you request the federal government to give you official reports and documents. You cannot just subpoena a federal officer to come to a grand jury. There is a process that has to be undertaken. And it is our position that certain entities within the federal government deliberately delayed producing information and deliberately slowed down the Fulton County DA's investigation.
So when Jimmy Atchison was killed by the Atlanta police, the Atlanta Police Department was averaging about 2 fatal shootings in a year. As of today, I think they're either up to 8 or 9 this year.
Sean, you want this one?
There hasn't been the same sort of public outcry this year that we saw in 2020. The same reaction, the same necessity for change, at least not being expressed by the public that I can see. What should we be doing right now about what's happening with police shootings today?
Good question. I'm Sean Williams with the Cochran Firm. And the first thing we need to do is what this family's been doing. We need to speak loud and keep talking. Because change only comes, I always remember this quote, the people get the government they deserve. And unfortunately, this community has allowed, as the father said, our black leaders not to step up. And for change to happen in this city, was the birthplace of civil rights. Dr. Martin Luther King stood for, John Lewis stood for the ability for our people, our community to walk these streets and get justice. And to allow it in this city, and the numbers keep increasing, is an indictment of the black leaders in this community. I'm hopeful with the district attorney's indictment in this case. I'm hopeful with the new mayor in town that we can get that. But the numbers don't lie. So we first got to start with holding our leaders accountable.
Right.
Okay? The next thing is we ourselves are our government. And so when the one thing I keep saying to people is this: just because we don't have cameras don't mean we got to shut up.
Amen.
We saw what we saw in George Floyd. That brought attention. But this is happening every day in every street across this country and this city, and we need to speak up. And full accountability happens when you hold the leaders of this community and all across this nation accountable. So we got to keep talking. We got to keep making noise. We got to keep starting it up. And to go on your conversation about the civil case, the number one priority of this family, the activists, was to get criminal justice for this officer. But full accountability, as my founding father, law firm father, Jordan Cochran used to say, requires full accountability. Full justice requires full accountability. That starts not only on the criminal side, but the civil side. We have 2 children that don't have their father.
Amen.
So we're joining up with Tanya and the Cochran firm bringing all our resources to make sure on the civil side, we hold everybody involved civilly accountable.
Yes.
But the number one priority is that he need to just serve time.
Yes.
And we need to make sure all of y'all come back here, and we're going to keep marching, keep making noise until he's in jail.
Amen. Amen.
All right?
Amen.
Because it's not about the money, but guess what? These kids need to be taken care of.
That's right.
And guess what? This family needs to be taken care of. So we can make sure this doesn't happen again. Because one thing about this country, people don't do anything different until it hits their pockets.
That's right.
So until the mayor, city council, this U.S. government have to do something different with their money, they ain't going to change. So let's make them hold them accountable on that, okay?
Can I answer that question?
On involuntary, is it 20?
10 years.
To answer your question, and this is coming from the Georgia NAACP, we've already called for a patterns and practice investigation into the Atlanta Police Department, because the number of police shootings should not be going up in the birthplace of civil rights. We've already had a conversation with the mayor of this city about speaking with these families and addressing the thing that people were marching in the streets in the largest numbers in the history of this country. And we will reaffirm the call that the national NAACP made for the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We are not done. Freedom Summer can pop off into Freedom Fall and Freedom Winter at any time. The only reason we stop marching is we march to the polls. And so we are calling on leadership to reaffirm its investment into police accountability. And for the media, I love y'all, but we also need to report on these police-involved shootings with the same veracity that we're reporting on citizen homicides, because both of them are going up. And so as the Georgia State Conference, we are calling on our elected officials to get real about police accountability, because there can never be true justice until justice applies to everybody.
Amen.
What is a patterns and practices investigation?
We're calling for the same investigation they did in George Floyd, the same investigation they did in Breonna Taylor, for all of the cases in Atlanta, because Atlanta has a police brutality problem, and it starts with the Atlanta Police Department. And so we are calling on the Department of Justice to open a full review into the Atlanta Police Department.
Amen.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.